Reflections, there's only two rules that we need to remember and worry about. If we're reflecting across the x-axis, my rule is x negative y. If we're reflecting across the y-axis, my rule is negative x comma y. So those are my two different rules. One for each type of reflection, and we've got to remember to think in terms again of opposites, right? If we flip over the x, we change the sign of our y. If we flip over the y, we change the sign of our x, but all of our numbers stay the same. So we started out number 1 yesterday. My pre-image is 3, negative 4. I'm reflecting across the x-axis, so I'm going to use the rule x comma negative y, which would give me an image coordinate of what? Darius, you got number 1 for me? What's number 1? Okay, so thank you, Darius. 3 comma 4. Yeah, I said Darius, but that's all right. I appreciate him. I'm not going to do this whole format, but make sure that you wrote this out for each problem. All right, good morning. Point B, we're reflecting across the y-axis. I'm going to use the rule. Thank you. I'm going to use the rule negative x comma y to get negative 1, 0. Right, we flip the sign of my x. We leave my y value as it is. Okay. Number 3, we're again reflecting across the y. I'm going to use negative x comma y. Who can help me out? What would my c prime coordinate here be? Devin, go ahead. Negative 1 comma 2. Not too bad, right? All we're doing is changing one single sign. Come on, do you have 48 or do you need 48? What's that? You got it? Perfect. Point D, this one we're reflecting across the x-axis, so we're going to go x comma negative y. So I know for D prime, I'm going to leave my x coordinate the same, but my y coordinate's already a negative 5. So am I going to write negative 5 again? Nope, I'm going to write positive 5. That's right. Oh, thank you. Why are you doing that? Wait. Okay. Number 3? No, so we're reflecting on the y-axis, so we change the sign of our x-coordinate. Negative 1 comma 2. This stuff can be really confusing because we got to think about, the opposite. Normally our brains will go, all right, y-axis, change the sign of the y. But that's not the case here. We've got to do the opposite. We see y-axis, we change the sign of our x. In number 5, we see x-axis. We're going to change the sign of our y coordinate. E prime would then be what? Negative 10, 3, absolutely. Point F, we flip across the y, we change the sign of our x. Negative 8 comma 2 is my F prime point. Now, with numbers 7 and 8, again, I don't know why they say 9 and 10. They should be 7 and 8. Doesn't really matter though, right? In number 7, now there's 2 ways for us to go about doing these. I'm going to go over both of them because I want you to see both ways. Because when it comes time for our test on this, it does not matter which way you do. Some people are more comfortable using the graph, like 9.2a. Some people are more comfortable using the rule and changing my numbers first, like 9.2b. So this first one, I'm going to use 9.2a. This next one, I'm going to use 9.2b. So, number 7, graphing a reflection. I'm going to take triangle DEF and reflect it on the y-axis. I'm going to highlight that so I don't forget which one it is, right there. All right? And I'm just going to count, right? Some of us are good at counting. I mean, hopefully all of us are good at counting, but some of us prefer the counting method. If I start at D, I'm going to count towards that line of reflection, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3 spaces, and then 1, 2, 3 more spaces past the line of reflection to get D prime. If I go up to F, F is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. I hit that line of reflection and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more spaces. Finally, point E is 1, 2 spaces away. I hit that line of reflection and go 1, 2 more spaces past for E prime. Connect the dots to make a triangle. And now we can record all of our coordinates. I would appreciate your guys' focus while we finish this up. D is at -3, -4. E is at -2, 0. And F is at -5, -1. On the flip side, literally, D prime is at 3, -4. E prime is at 2, 0. And F prime is at 5, -1. Again, we flipped across the y-axis. We changed the signs of our x coordinates there. So that's our first option. Give me a thumbs up if you prefer the counting on the graph method. Anybody like it, doing it that way better? About half of us. Good. Let's take a look at the other option. Again, on the test, either option works. In number 8/number 10, we're going to reflect across the x-axis, which is right there. Now for this one, I'm going to use my numbers. I'm going to start by plotting, or not plotting, I'm going to start by figuring out where these points are at. J is at -5, -3. K is at -2, -2. And L is at -2, -3. Now, because I'm reflecting across the x-axis, what's the rule that I'm going to use here? Is it -xy or x -y? -xy, super close. We're reflecting on the x. We want to change the sign of our y. And this is in our notes, so this is not something we have to memorize necessarily, at least in this class. So you can always refer back to those notes from yesterday to determine which rule to use. But we're reflecting on the x, we change the sign of our y. So all of my x coordinates stay exactly the same. -5 in j becomes still -5 in j prime. -2 is still -2. And -2 again is still -2. What we're going to change, though, is the sign of my y coordinates. What would -3 become? +3. What about -2? +2 and -3, +3. So we see in number 7, we started with the graph, finished with the points. In number 8, we're starting with the points, finishing up with the graph. Now I don't have to count, I don't have to do my bumps, I just have to plot these 3 points like we all know how to do. J prime is at -5, +3. K prime is at -2, +2. And L prime is at -2, +3. Connect my dots together. I'm going to shade mine in. You don't have to. And there's our reflection on the x-axis. Quick show of thumbs. Does anyone prefer to do it that way, with the points first? Couple people. That's good. It's the less popular one typically, right? Most of us are visual learners, so we like doing the counting. It helps us see the even spacing between the two. But some of us that are more analytical learners might prefer to tackle the numbers first and then just plot those points, make it easy for you. But again, it's up to you. I'm not going to force you to do one or the other. Beauty of math is there's always more than one way to get to a result, so it's up to you to decide what you're more comfortable doing on the test. All right, final questions I can answer here. Good morning, Karina.